Here at Everyday Driver, we're big fans of the E90 series BMW M3.
It's been a performance benchmark its entire lifespan, but now it's headed out of production.
So that means it's become a great used car option. However, there are two other cars that claim to be even better driver's cars than the M3.
One is the Mustang Boss 302, and the other is BMW's own 1M.
We wondered if either car might be a better choice. Driving this one now, I'm kind of having trouble seeing that, but we'll see.
One of the reasons we really love the M3 is because it is one of the world's best do-it-alls. I mean, it can just hang out. It can be luxurious, it can be a commuter car. It can also be a hoonmobile. The M3 is the benchmark, and deservedly so.
I think we have been waiting to drive this car as long as you've been wanting us to drive it. This is the 2012 Boss 302, and this is reminding me why I'm such a Mustang fan. The Boss is a rare car, resurrected from the 1969 and 1970 model years, and this is the only other time this car has been built.
I'm not a huge fan of muscle cars, and I've never really been a fan of the Mustang. I've driven plenty of Mustangs, they've just never spoken to me personally. So when I first heard that Ford was calling out the M3 as its target for this car, I kind of thought they were picking the wrong fight.
Now the car we're driving is not the Laguna Seca edition. The Laguna Seca model was even more targeted at the M3.
And then my first introduction to the Boss was on a track, which was a great way to meet this car, because it defies muscle car convention and absolutely loves the corners. So more aggressive engine, more aggressive suspension, more aggressive brakes that actually squeal and squeak anytime you're not using them hard.
The owner for this car has not made any modifications that are performance enhancing, so this is a stock Boss 302. This car just does all the right things.
They've taken the exact same V8 that's in the standard Mustang GT, and they've just made it more powerful. So it's got more horsepower, but strangely, less torque. Not that that leaves you wanting for torque. It is a good old American V8 after all. The owner of this car took out the extra baffle that allows the exhaust to sometimes be a little more acceptable.
15 minutes after he bought it, which is exactly what you should do.
I'm starting to wonder if we're going to get audio for this interview or if it's just going to be 10 minutes of engine noise.
This engine gives you 444 reasons to buy this car. Listen to that! That just gets evil above 6,000.
Pedals are positioned wonderfully for heel-toe downshifts, and the engine just wants you to rev it anyway. The clutch is the opposite of the 1M. The BMW takes no effort at all, and this is almost like a sledgehammer by comparison.
This car is the heavyweight cage fighter. There is, of course, the GT500 with 200 more horsepower. Do I feel like I need it in this car? No, I don't. This is the best balance.
The Mustang has kind of become the American 911. It's the same basic recipe, has been forever, and they just keep refining it into oblivion.
Looking at the exterior, the Boss 302 doesn't appear to visually distinguish its high performance.
The changes here are subtle. It could almost be any Mustang on the road. It looks a lot like a GT, with the exception of the Boss 302 graphics. The blacked out grille comes without fog lights, and the owner of this car decided to cut out the circles, making it even more noticeable.
On this car, the front and lower fascias are changed, but ever so slightly.
The retro graphics and blacked out grille start to make this car stand out. And then there's that large front splitter that looks like it could cut your grass for you.
Looking around the interior, I would like this to be a bit more special. The design is unchanged, and the plastics are still rental car quality. I don't even want to put my arm on the windowsill. What's nice though is when you drive the Boss 302 like it's meant to be driven, all is forgiven, and you probably won't even notice.
The Recaros in this car are very aggressive and superb. They're the kind of seats this car needs and just cocoon you for fast driving. One of the things that does make the interior of this car stand out is the ball shifter. The throws are short and mechanical and better than the shifter in the 1M.
You know, when we first drove the E90 four-door M3, I really fell in love with that car. Jumping back into this one, I remember why. The dynamics are so sharp. Now you think, for this car to compete against the M3, it's got to be brilliant.
Generally, muscle cars have gotten the engine noise and the engine power right for a long time. The question is, how is this car in corners? Because that's where the muscle car falls down. And that first time on the track and up here on mountain roads, I'm a little astonished at what they've done for the steering feel in this car.
Now, Ford does not use a steering ratio nearly as quick as the BMWs. However, it doesn't feel sloppy.
First off, this is an electric-powered steering rack.
So if you think about it, it's newer technology up front and technology that's over a century old in the back. It's beam axle holding up the back end of this car. You would never know it. I don't know what magic Ford has done to make a solid rear axle handle so well.
And in spite of keeping the live rear axle, this does have a much more aggressive adjustable suspension setup. Now, it's not something you can adjust the suspension from inside the cabin. That kind of keeps up the rough and tumble everyman feel of this car. If you've got yourself a screwdriver, you have 5 levels of adjustment.
I'm so surprised by how well this car tracks. The Boss 302 is one of those cars that gets better the harder you drive it.
The brakes only like to be trampled on. The steering only likes to be manhandled. The engine only wants to be revved. This car is angry about doing anything but going full out.
Honestly, it demands that you throw it harder into a corner than you ever thought was possible. And of course, you roar out of the corner.
Muscle cars can sometimes feel floaty and a bit front heavy. This has neither of the above. It's incredibly flat and feels remarkably balanced front to rear. This is specific and exact. It's like a sniper rifle for canyon roads.
I expected a lot from this car, and believe me, it's not disappointing. I feel like the M3 is just that much more of a usable car. It is so close, so close. Would I take this car over the BMWs? Well, that's giving me a convincing argument. If you're getting a Mustang, it has to be a Boss 302, period.
Now, this can't hope to compete with an M3 in refinement. That's not what it's about. But here is a muscle car platform that gives you all the muscle car angry attitude and yet succeeds in competing with the M3, the M3 of all things, in sheer performance.
I would own this car, absolutely. But I think I would own it as a second car. The 1M and the M3 are cars that you could own as your only car because of the refinement. Now, if that's something that doesn't matter to you, you will be happy in this car.
All the attitudes you might like or want out of a muscle car, that's all still here in the Boss 302. But on top of that, you get precision that normally isn't in a car like this. Here is a Mustang that I would absolutely buy, that I would encourage others to buy. And if you're shopping for a Mustang, there really isn't another one to get.
I love Fords. I'm a Mustang guy.
Yeah.
Yet I'm a German car snob.
You've had a rough day.